those of you that don't know us.
Hello, I'm Ayeh Kashani. I'm originally from Iran. I'm currently living in Oakland, where I am a PhD candidate in philosophy, spirituality, and psychedelics.
And my name is Parham Farsi. I go by Farsi here. My client name is Farsi. I'm a tech background. I was a software engineer by degree. Recently, I switched and I started doing anything I can to help people connect to themselves. I'm a minister right now. And this talk is kind of related. It's interesting that we are going after Jahan. Thank you, Jahan. I'm going to be drawn for that. But I want to invite you up to kind of zoom in a little bit, right? This talk, I want to bring it a little bit more personal to you, right? So I appreciate all the information and everything we have from the collective and how things work and what our evolution is going forward. But this would be like, let's bring it down to you. You know, this talk would be us introducing something to you that might be helpful for you and your own path. What we're going to talk about is called technologies of the sacred, right? I'm wondering like what brings that up for you, right? Like when you hear technologies of the sacred, right? If I open it up, is like technologies, right? Things that are helping the sacred somehow. What are those? Can you think of any examples? You know, like what would be a technology of sacred into your eye?
Meditation practice.
Yeah, meditation practice, right? That's one. We see a lot of psychedelic journeys and ceremonies that was mentioned earlier, from the shamanic practices of old days to all the new ones that we hold today. We consider that as one. So yeah, let's ground in the story. Let's hear what this term technology of the sacred comes from. Let's start there.
Yeah, so the technologies of sacred, it's a term that was coined by Stan Grof, a psychiatrist and LSD psychotherapist in the 60s. And the term comes out of transpersonal psychology, and it refers to various, like you said, technologies, techniques, practices that humanity has had throughout the centuries that are specifically used to give access to expanded states of consciousness for healing, development, evolution, growth.
Yeah, and what is the point, you ask, right? Like, so what's the point of all of this, right? Like, what we know and hear from our personal experiences here with psychedelics, with other modalities, there's this belief that exists for thousands of years in different cultures, you know, in our own Iranian heritage, in Chinese Tao cultures mentioned. There's talks about this intelligence, this thing that's birthed with you. As you're born, there's this intelligence that's also like attached to you, kind of like a recorder, and it like goes with you through life, right? And there's states of being that when we take all mushrooms and go through a meditation journey, or even a music festival, sometimes you go through it, you're like, wow, I can see there's something that's showing me the path. There's this thing that now we named it as inner healer. You know, back in the day, they called it Farahar, they call it Tao, they call it divine. But like we all seem to have a specific one that's for us. You know, like my inner healer wouldn't know what's good for you right now. You know, and so technologies of the sacred are touching on this basis of like when we see this inner healing intelligence is woken up and somehow is healing you, guiding you, you're having a conversation, you're receiving support, right? An example of that is what we wrote.
This thing right next to me is a little. Yeah, so with the inner healers, an example that I always like to think about is in the physical body. Your body always knows how to heal itself if there's a wound. Let's say you break a leg or something. Yes, you might bring some support from the outside to make sure it heals straight, but the healing is an intelligence that your body has. So the inner healer is a psycho-spiritual version of that. If there's something in the body or in the psyche, in the spirit, that calls for growth or it needs healing, yes, we provide the safe space for it with a set and setting, but it's that inner healer that is going to take you where you need to go and give you
let's talk about this inner healer. You know, have you all had experiences of like inner healer? You know, do you had states that's like, okay, I connected to mine, I had a talk with something, you know, it guided me, you know? And interestingly, it seems like the pathway to this inner healer is this emotional or something, right? It's this like tension that lives somewhere in our body, right? I was working in a breathwork session with somebody and it was like, yeah, I feel something here, it's like uncomfortable. She looked at me and she was like, yeah, that's your guide. You know, there is usually when we go to that tension, when we develop the capacity to feel safe and actually visit that tension, usually that tension comes up, oh yes, I was a kid and this happened, but see, like, we don't want to take it to this trauma space. What we're talking about here is that kid had an experience that was stored in their body. Now you as an adult is visiting that. And it's changing your life. You know, when we all go through one of these healing emotions, a big thing comes up, a big release comes up. Our life changes in front of us. The project that was blocked somehow gets opened up. You know, you don't even have to do anything about it. Right? So like you see, it's almost like we can call it a battery that's feeding your development today. Right? It's like a guide for you. It's a message that has inside of this state. So the point of technologies of the sacred is all these ways that we identified and we figured out, okay, it can get us there, right? What are some of the examples?
Yeah, so we have the ancient traditional things that people are more familiar with, like the dancing Sufis, where they're using the music and the constant rhythmic spinning to reach an expanded state. Fasting and different kind of vision quests and rites of passages, bloodletting, shamanic practices, of course, plant medicine we're all familiar with. But anything like sound healing, sweat lodges, but we even have more modern things that are starting to come up.
Yeah, modern things. You know, you all have examples, like, have you been to those sensory deprivation tanks? They have them somewhere here. You just get closed up into this black environment. It's just like nothing is happening. It's just you and your thoughts, right? So like, it's not every time, obviously, that you walk in there, you get an expand or a holotropic state is the right word for it, right? We don't want to call it altered or expanded. Holotropic is the name that we've been using for this. And then, I don't know, like they're making vibration beds these days that vibrate under you with, you know, and there's sound healing stuff. I know Joe knows that. And Burning Man and all these festivals, how about those? You know, like, would you consider Burning Man? Like, I was talking to somebody who was like, yeah, it's a pagan holiday. We all have this ritual that we go, we're all in a cult. We burn the man. And, you know, and so it's basically like all of these rituals, all of these pathways that are ready and they're connecting you to your inner healer.
Yeah, and in general, I think it's pretty good consensus that everybody's very familiar with psychedelics as one of these technologies. But we wanted to bring in two modalities that are non-medicinal. So the first one is Stan Grof's holotropic breathwork, and the second one is Win Tamura's Tamura method. So why don't we start out with the breathwork?
Yeah, let's start with the breathwork. So one common thing that we mentioned that seems to be happening with all of these is when we look at our bodies, it seems like we're finding tension in our bodies. And it's somewhere. It's stored in your organs, your bones, your muscles, who knows how, right? But sometimes it's felt, you know, the felt experience of the tension when they get released. Feels like there are messages in there, there's experiences, there's these things, right? So holotropic breathwork is one that Stan Grof himself kind of started after all the psychedelics were illegal and they couldn't do something. He has a way of telling the story. He's like, yeah, I went to Esalen and people are like, okay, so did you have a stash? What do we do now, right? And he's like, him and his late wife, Christina Grof, they were like, okay, let's remember what was increasing our psychedelic journeys when we were having them. And they realized with a certain type of body work and just breathing constantly with attention and music, you can actually push yourself into the state. Your brain produces things that it needs to, and it actually pushes you into a psychedelic experience, right? These experiences could be as small as like, oh, I just felt my heart and I had a big release, or as big as, oh, I am in the universe birthing myself and the universe and everybody else. You know, those experiences are so many, you know, we had many of them happen for the past 20, 30 years, and they're mostly documented, so it's really interesting to have that knowledge. You wanted to talk about a little bit of details of set and settings?
Sure, yeah. So what we really value in this, we're both in the training for the facilitation with the Groff Legacy Project, and what just really stood out to us is the container that they're holding. So of course there's the facilitators themselves that are walking the room. It's probably like 20 people laying there. But you also have a partner that you're breathing with. So at one point they're sitting watching you breathe for 3 hours and giving you paper towels and taking you to the bathroom and water and whatnot. And then you switch after the integration is done. And now you're going to breathe and they're holding that space for you. And there's nothing specific about the breathing. It's just a matter of breathe slower or faster and deeper than you usually would. And when in doubt, breathe. The rest of it is just like the inner healer is going to take care of you. Just trust the experience. But what we've seen is that container itself that is being created with being able to sit with someone and being able to be witnessed and held. And sometimes people that's the biggest experience they've had is being witnessed for 3 hours and just being taken care of. And that's as big a experience for them than any like insane cosmic psychedelic experience. So like being witnessed, that trust and safety that's created between them. Earlier you mentioned that the various experiences that can be had from very basic to very cosmic. There isn't really a thought of like which experience is better than the other. It really comes down to trusting that inner healer to give you the experience you need.
Since we have time, I do want to bring an example of that into the space, if that's okay. So and I know you all, most of you have read this example probably in the books that we read, but there's an example about a holotropic breathwork session. And sometimes people name that wrongly as an LSD session, but this was a holotropic experience that somebody had a shoulder pain that they show up in a holotropic breathwork experience, right? And so they start breathing and they drop in. They're back at being like a 8-9-year-old kid at a beach where their cousins, they're playing, they built an ark of sand, and they go under it, the cousins jump up and he gets stuck under with his shoulder under this ark of sand, right? Comes out of the experience, oh wow, what a big experience, I didn't know my shoulder injury was from that, and then they come out, they're like, okay, I still have pain in my shoulder though, what do we do, right? They were like, keep breathing, let's do it again. And they breathe again and again and again, and they actually find themselves in birth canal, getting stuck, being born with their shoulders into the birth canal, right? And later on, that obviously there are checks with their parents, yes, this is exactly what happens, so that validates the experience they had. They come out of the state, but the shoulder pain is still there, right? So now the breathwork had one more goodie in the basket, right? They actually breathe again, and now they found themselves riding a horse in some sort of war, and somebody comes in with a sparrow or something and hits their shoulder, they fall off and die, right? Now, in our lens of view, we want to, we're ministers, we want to accept your knowledge and what you believe in or not, right? The way that Groff himself explained it both ways is yes, maybe you had a past life experience, I validate that if you believe that and you want that. Or no, your body, your psyche just showed you an experience that was possible for it to let go of the shoulder pain, right? I don't want to get involved here that, oh, this was a true experience or you're hallucinating or something, but the point of this healing is you don't have a shoulder pain, right? So that was the result of this experience. It was a very powerful one, right? Which also shows we meet you where you are. It doesn't have to be, I don't have to prove you wrong or right? What we care about here is that you got healed, your shoulder pain is gone.
Yeah, I think what really comes down to is that emotional release. That's really that keeps coming back to is a release of some sort. And Groff has this quote. It was something like, the full expression of an emotion is the funeral pyre of that emotion. So for him, it always comes down to you gotta go into that unconscious and you experience and express what needs to be expressed, and then you let it go. And that word seems to be where the healing comes from.
Thank you. So, speaking of tensions in the body, we're going to move on to the next modality, or technology of the sacred that we like and we're proud of. We both came across this thing called Tamara method, which is a somatic sensing modality. Basically, when Tamara, this person in Oakland, was a body worker, intuitively, he realized that he can point to the places of the client's body that are tense and have pain in them, right? He slowly realized that he can do that. And then later on in his career, he actually was like, okay, I can actually imagine my energy go to those places, and it seems like those places get softened, right? And I can imagine love, I can imagine power, I can imagine support. These are my imaginations, but through my hands and touch, I can actually guide it to that point, and that point releases. Now, interestingly, when that happens, the client also has an experience of connecting some dot, some memory that was there, not available to them, some program that they had, some contract that they had that they kept, comes up and it's like, oh wow, okay, this, we'll have some examples of that as well. I want to go into the technical of it first, like what it looks like.
So the Tamara method is relying on the wounded child theory. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. But the concept is that, when something happens in childhood, and there is that tension that is being held around it, he identifies that full ball of energy and consciousness and physical and mental as the inner wounded child. That this child is holding on to something from the past, and it brings it into your current life, and you start acting it out. So the way that he describes how this modality works is that when you bring conscious energetic touch to the body, it bypasses the adult mind, which is more the ego mind thinking about the things that has happened, and it actually accesses the child to whom this thing happened. So you get to actually go and experience the actual feelings of that child in that moment that this thing is happening, and you get to express it. And again, like before, we see that there's this connection that takes place between the practitioner and the person that helps feel safe and connected and seen and accepted for whatever is coming up, and that brings deep healing.
Interestingly, when Tamara went on and he actually teaches this modality now, he's been teaching it for years. We got certified on it ourselves, and we've been offering that too. It's been one of the most powerful ones. Like in an hour or an hour and a half session, you go to the places that a full-on psychedelic journey takes you. One example that I want to invite here for you all to know what could happen is last year, this time, I guess, I was at Burning Man and I was offering these sessions in the camp with campmates that we made. So one particular person was hurt that day, and they were like, yeah, I was helping and I hurt. I usually get hurt. I'm very clumsy. And they came in and we actually started doing Tamara work together, right? So all of a sudden they found themselves back having a childhood experience that they're with their mom, they're at a train station, their luggage is getting stolen, and something really terrible and bad happened to them. But then all the people gathered and collected money and gave it to them, so they had extra money to go get McDonald's, right? And so this kid was actually happy for this incident, right? And somehow they came out of this experience that was stored in their body, and they were like, this was the aha moment. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe, you have no idea how I've been getting sick my whole life with all these weird things that I don't even know, doctors don't even know. They go away, they come back. It's unknown. I've been in and out of hospital so many times. I'm recognizing that there's this child in me right now that actually wanted those. It wanted the attention that we were getting when we were sick going to the hospital, right? And that was what I learned as a 5 or 4-year-old kid, that's how I can get attention, right? So this is and it's interesting because, see, this experience is integrated, right? there's no substance, there's no alteration. You haven't taken anything. You're in your own mind, remembering your own memories and connecting the dots, right? So integration of this modality happens usually right on the spot. We found it to be very powerful. Do you have another example?
Yeah, my example is more personal. I personally have a very hard time crying and showing vulnerability. Whenever I've done the Tamara method, there's always been a very accessible emotions that I usually can't access because of that connection that is made with the other person and feeling safe with them, and them wanting to know me in my vulnerability. I've been able to access that very freely, and be able to be witnessed even by my own adult mind, seeing my child show grief and sadness has been very healing for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We do have some time, so I want to bring one more example that happened recently, like a couple of weeks ago. I booked a client and I was working with them. They called me 3 times. They were like, "Are we gonna have our session tomorrow?" I'm like, "Yes." The next day they called before leaving house. They were like constantly, they checked on me like 3 or 4 times. They're like, "Are we gonna have this session?" I'm like confused. I'm like, "Why do you keep checking this?" Right? So they come over, we do the normal work, basically you tune the body, you do the work, and then toward the end of the session, there was this point that I really felt. I was like, okay, I can see this tension here in their intercostals over here, and I held it. I was like, is it okay if I held you, right? You create a space that for people to feel safe, right? Based on Jahan's talk earlier too, if you don't feel safe, nothing's gonna happen. You don't feel safe to open up or be seen. With the safety, I held that space, and all of a sudden they started coughing like they were like drowning in water, right? And they coughed and released, they coughed, released, they cried. They came up, they were like, okay, you have no idea what just happened. And I experienced my death, right? When I was 4 years old or 3 years old, my mom wanted to teach me swimming, and she was like, okay, you jump, I'm gonna catch you. And then I jumped in a pool. As soon as I went to get her, she backed up. She didn't catch me, she wasn't there for me, she lied. I went to the bottom of the pool, water, I died. I don't know how, but I found my way up swimming, and my mom was like, haha, you learned how to swim now, honey. And this is a horrible experience, but back in the day they taught differently, things were different, but you can see how they connected there. They were like, yeah, Parham, I called you 3 times because I still saw you as a mom that's gonna back away from this contract of ours, from this agreement that we made. And I've been treating my entire life with that. My friends, my work, everybody, right? I do this extra triple for check because everybody's seen to my eyes as my mom that's just gonna back away, and I'm gonna go drown now. We have some time if you want to have more examples or close it up for questions.
For questions, if you
yeah. So technologies of the sacred, right? These were the 2 that we brought in. There's so many that And if you have any questions, this is kind of the space for that. We feel complete. I'm talking about it.
Who wants to ask a question?
Would you consider different forms of harm reduction a technology of the sacred?
I consider them the safety before the experience that needs to happen, right? None of these modalities will work if you don't have that safety check first, right? So harm reduction and all the effort that happened I put them in the category of creating a safe space, right? Like the role that I have is kind of in the same category, right? I'm particularly not your technology myself, but I can hold the space for you to use plant medicine or Tomora, other modalities, to go use the technology of the sacred, right? And so yeah, you have a different example?
I was thinking the same thing. It's part of the set and setting, is that safety, whatever that entails, whatever that looks like.
Other questions?
So do you have recommendations for getting the
Tamara training, is that what you called it? In the
Tamara method.
Tamara method in the Bay Area?
I think they're teaching every summer. It's usually in like Lafayette, Bay Area.
We live in the Bay Area. We live in Oakland.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to connect connect you to the training.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth it.
What supportive modalities? I'm sorry I missed the beginning of your talk. We've really tried to get here on time and it just didn't work that way. But what other methods around these kinds of sacred technologies do you recommend for people?
What do you mean methods? Like other modalities?
Yeah.
We were talking about one of the most popular one everybody talks about is our psychedelics. But also dancing, ecstatic dance can be very, especially if you kind of let your body take you through the waves, and there's a lot of breathing involved with that as well. We talk about breath work, holotropic, Rothian breath work. We mentioned, what was it, the tanks?
What I think I started at the beginning was like we recognize there's a possibility of an intelligence with you that's been there since your birth, right? And inner healer, wisdom, farah, there are different names that we use for that. And I would say like, thanks for asking, but like know that the next step of your healing journey is yours. And so like right now, Tamara method is an interesting one. We've been seeing it because it's like an hour and a half sessions, and there's no medicine involved. It's really just you and your present. That's the most fascinating. Like me and her, we were both doing psychedelic work as well, and mostly these days we're kind of like looking for Tamara. We're like inviting our clients to, like that's great. It changes a lot of things, but come also, like psychedelics are not right for everybody, right? And so this has been really a game changer for us, and breath work as well. Like we're not done training; we're actually getting trained in breath work facilitations ourselves. But that's the other one that I'm like, okay, I'm here. It's just you, your soberness, your body. Come breathe, and see what you see, right?
That was Dan Roth's summary as well. Is that within us already?
I'm not sure exactly how to formulate this question. So it's around Tamura, and how do you, as a practitioner, have the sensitivity to be able to find the spots in the client? Like, do they guide you? Is it you really just deeply sensing in? Is there a dialogue that's happening? I experienced a little bit of Tamura with a therapist where it just felt like a hold in certain places, and it was around creating a somatic sense of safety, but then there was more of a verbal process happening at the same time. I guess I'm curious what the dialogue is like.
Yeah, so the way the typical session runs is like, so as a practitioner, you're trained to feel, right? Feel is like one of the first steps, right? And we can all usually, like, either we know it or not, right? When we are in a space, we feel each other, we feel the environment, And so especially when you touch somebody's body, you can actually, like, it's possible to get trained and focus and feel their body. That's usually the first step, you make a safe connection and you feel somebody's body, right? Now, throughout the training, you learn, you basically go through steps of like what that looks like. You practice with other people and you're like, oh, I can actually feel your back. Is it true? They're like, oh yeah, my back is hurting. And it kind of validates your intuition, right? You basically develop that first. And then using your imagination, we're all, in a sense, energy beings, right? You can actually feel the earth right now, right, under yourself. And you can imagine earth giving you energy into your body, electricity, magnetic field, whatever that works for you, right? And it comes to your hands and you can actually push it in somebody's body, right? When you do that, if you hold your hand over somebody, they can actually feel a little more heat. They're like, oh, all of a sudden I feel like your hand warmed up, right? So however we do it, we are humans capable of doing that, right? And interestingly, this Win is a humble person. It's like, no, I wasn't born with some special superpower or like godly something. No, this is I got to it step by step here by accident intuitively. I can actually teach it to you, right? And so like in our training, I actually attended like 3 trainings, like 90 people, 80 of them were able to find and feel. They got the feeling parts correct. You know, now like, you know, the number drops as when you bring the energy in and, you know, like who stays with the program, who doesn't, right? Because we all are different types, you know. So yeah, does that answer the question? You can actually feel.
Yeah, largely. I've had experiences in receiving Hakomi therapy where the practitioner was supporting a spot where I was feeling tension. But I really, like, I had to guide him, like, is it right there? How much pressure? When we found the right spot, that's when I got the emotional release. Or another body worker, like, something was a little bit off. I had to, like, guide where the spot was. So there was a dialogue so that we could get it exactly right and find that position. But
yeah, the dialogue is also important in that sense because like you want to keep the attention of the child, right? Because like when usually look you feel attention, it's not our first call to go in there, you know, and we all tend to go off in our mind looking for things or go by, right? So the conversation in the Tamura method is more of keeping you here, you know, because like it's actually felt, right? Like you can feel, like just looking at the audience, like yourself, or like if you're having a conversation, right? Bring curiosity, right? See if you can feel how many of people are listening to you with what percentage of their awareness, right? Some people are there 100% with you. Some people are in there listening to you, but also scanning for a topic to bring it into the conversation. Some people are not even listening to you. They're just in their mind scanning, right? And if you actually notice it today, I encourage you, invite you to just walk out when you're having a conversation with people. Like see who you can guess. Like, hey, who's here with 100% of their awareness? Who is like 10% here, you know? Can I feel that?
thank you.
Hello. I just wanted to, you know, I took the Tamura method training. Thank you, Parham. And I just wanted to like share a little bit. How are you? I want to share, you know, just a little bit of my own experience with it. You know, you can take the training. The training is to become a practitioner, but you can also just receive it, right? And I started, you know, and I had done a lot of work with psychedelics before I started. And I saw a demonstration of it, and it's fucking, you know, it's like impressive. It's like, wow. It's incredible what happens when this is going on, right? Like the practitioner puts his hands on the person, and a full-grown man will burst into tears like a little baby. It's wild. I was immediately like, you know, this is incredible. And so then I went and started receiving it. So, you know, one thing about me is like for the last 30 years, really, I've been receiving deep tissue massage, you know, because my shoulders are so tight. You know, my body's so tight. And I was always like looking for the meanest, strongest, deep tissue people to like, you know, get in there and do something because I was so freaking tight and I didn't know why. I thought it was just like, oh, okay, I guess this is the way I am. After 6 weeks of receiving Tamura method, my masseuse is like, oh, we're finally making progress on your shoulders. And after about 12 weeks, I stopped getting massage, you know, because it was actually hurting me. You know, I had become so soft that it was actually hurting me. So it's an incredible, permanent way to release tension out of the body. And highly encourage everybody to try it. And thank you, Parham, for bringing it here.
Thank you so much, Joe, for sharing that personal experience.
Cool. Who else?